When was the last time that you felt sadness, or maybe you're feeling sad right now? So, I would like to invite you to have a listen to this. I have a little sharing about the emotional state of sadness. Hi, everyone. My name is Tente, and today I want to create this episode a little bit different. I really want to go into improv and just have a conversation about sadness, about feeling sad and about this emotional state of sadness. So, we have this idea that sadness is something bad, that sadness is something that we have to get rid of it. And we always want to be happy. We always want to be in this ecstatic state of happiness. And if it's not that, it means we're just having a really bad life because we're having a sad day. So if we keep on going like this, it's just a really shitty lifestyle. And of course, on the long run, it is. Let's be honest on this one as well. However, the way how we perceive sadness can be challenged or can be changed and can be different. Usually, when we speak about sadness, we think about always the negative side. We think that it's something really negative. But in reality, sadness is speaking to us. Sadness is telling us something. Sadness is also there to help us to understand that something is not going well. How would you know that something is not going well if you don't feel sad? Usually, it's when you feel sad that you understand that something is going wrong, and some people, and I say some of us, gets activated by that. They suddenly say, okay, I'm done with feeling like this because it's not comfortable, so I'm going to move on and I'm going to make a move. Doesn't matter which move it does, but it's a move that's going to take you out of that state of sadness. So, as you can see, sadness doesn't has to be bad. However, there is also this idea that whenever you feel sad, especially now with all those motivational speakers, they want to take you away from it because they say it's a limiting feeling, emotion. Even they say it's beliefs, though it's an emotion and it's a feeling, but it says it's limiting you, and it is indeed limiting you. If you keep it too long, it's going to limit you because it's going to hold you from moving. But for some people, it activates as well. So, sadness, I see sadness as something where you have to enter to get something out of it. You feel sad for some reason and you get the lesson through sadness. And once you have the lesson, is when you step up and you say, okay, now it's my turn, and you're stepping out of sadness and you go back to whatever you want to be. So, what happens often is that people reject sadness or they condemn sadness. They see that as being weak. And I really don't think so. I don't think it's being weak to feel sad. I think it's weak to reject sadness and not willing to feel sad. Because what you're doing is basically you're pushing it down. And then sadness comes and it kicks harder. Because at some point you will have to listen to it. So the more you push it down, the harder it's going to come. And maybe by the end of that, you end up in a depression. I'm just saying maybe. But that's how I look at things. So whenever I have a moment that is sad or there is something that I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a little bit more heavy, it's I'm not so happy, I'm feeling down, maybe I'm also low in energy or I didn't slept well, I had a bad news or somebody just hurt me and I'm in this pain and this grief. I allow it. I really allow it. But I'm also very aware of how much time I spend there, but I allow it because, in my experiencing, when you fight any emotion and you don't allow the emotion to express and speak up, so the emotions wants to tell you something, but if you don't allow it to speak up, you will not get the message. So it will come back at some point. For example, you have this sadness of feeling lonely. And people getting to a relationship to not feel lonely. And whenever that relationship breaks, then they go to in a very deep, sad state. And I'm not saying breaking up is not sad. Of course, it's sad and it's a challenge, but there is still a level of sadness, that you can sort of manage. But when you have this thing of feeling alone and the sadness come to tell you, to make you feel that loneliness so intensely that you actually don't want to feel alone anymore. But the real message that is behind it, and I speak from my own experience, is that sadness was trying to tell me that if you feel alone, it's because you haven't found yourself. Being physically alone doesn't mean you have to be emotionally alone. And if you're needy to need someone to not feel alone, you're dependent. You're not free. But sadness can teach you that. If you really listen to the message, sadness can tell you there is something wrong about being alone. And then you ask the question, what is it? And it can be that you're just not okay being with yourself. That's why you try to fill it up with other people. But the power in feeling good when physically being alone and feeling that you actually are not really alone because you have yourself is one of the beautiful ways to self love. Feeling alone usually feels like you're not worth it, feels like nobody really cares about you. It feels like you're alone in this world, even though physically you have neighbors and you have other people and you even have friends, but there is something inside of you that feels so lonely. And it might be that you're just not okay in being with yourself. That voice that is inside of you is calling you out, is asking you, is shouting at you, please be with me. Be with me, with yourself. It's your own self calling you, asking to be with him or with her. And this is an act of self love. This is something pushed from very deep inside of you that is asking you for self love, for love. You can be your best partner. You can be your best lover. You can be your best friend. This is the way how you can have love for yourself. Loneliness, sadness, and self love are always interconnected. So, whenever you feel sadness, try to really understand what makes you feel so sad and what is the real message behind. Don't just stick to, I feel lonely because she broke up with me, because that's not the real reason. The reason that you feel lonely is probably for some other reason. It's because you're physically alone. And then you feel emotionally alone. And then sadness comes. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to get rid of sadness. Try to feel it. It's my invitation of the day. Just try to feel it and listen to what it has to say. But if you go into rejection, the chance that you will suffer and that you will repeat this cycle without passing through healing process will be very high. Listen to what your sadness has to say. So I really hope this can give you a little bit of more insight when we are having a difficult day, when we're having and experiencing sadness. It doesn't have to be bad and it doesn't mean it's negative. Sadness doesn't mean it's negative. And out of sadness or out of sad states, we can take something really positive and we can even get energy whenever we enter in this healing process, whenever we realize like this is the reason why I felt sad. And then you tap into it, and suddenly you will get a boost of energy. And a lot of good changes comes out of the states of sadness. Now remember, don't stay there too long. Stay there just the amount of time in order for you to get the lesson.